Sister-in-law and her deadbeat husband break into my house while me and my husband are abroad on a trip, so I call the cops out of pure fear as soon as I return, and look at the mess the house is in. Now they're arrested and are looking at jail time. But my husband wants me to forgive them because they just needed a chance to play happy family. So I might be the reason why my sister-in-law and her husband end up in prison. I think I need to start from the beginning. I, Alice, 28 female, met my husband Brian, 28 male 3 years ago in a club. We ended up talking the whole night. It turns out he had a thing for true crime too. I swear, it was like the universe sent him to me. He even knew about this little obscure case I was obsessed with. Right there, I just knew. He wasn't like the other guys I'd been out with. Before I knew it, he was asking for my number. I know this is sudden, he said, giving me this sheepish grin I quickly fell for. But would you want to go out sometime? That sometime turned out to be the very next day for coffee, which turned into dinner, and another day the day after. Let's just say things moved fast. Everything with Brian felt so right. We laughed so hard together that sometimes our sides would hurt. We could talk for hours and never run out of things to say. He was understanding and supportive, and he saw me, the real me. With Brian, I didn't feel like I had to pretend, and that feeling was intoxicating. Within a few months, it just made sense for us to move in together. Living with him brought a whole new layer to our relationship. Yeah, I learned that Brian sometimes left his socks on the bathroom floor, but seeing each other every morning and night, making breakfast together, those little moments made my heart swell. About a year after we started dating, Brian got down on one knee in our apartment. Okay, let me rephrase that. Brian attempted to get down on one knee in our apartment, but he tripped over a cat toy on the floor and ended up proposing half on his knee, half sprawled across the carpet. I loved it though. It was completely imperfect and totally us. Of course I said yes. We spent the next several months planning a small wedding. Neither of us wanted anything huge and extravagant. We knew the most important thing was to have our closest friends and family there. The wedding was beautiful, simple, and filled with so much love. My dad even cried during his speech, which totally surprised me. I have been really close to Brian's family, and he has been close to mine. His mom is the sweetest person ever, and my parents just adore him. The only person with whom I have not been able to connect is Brian's sister, and now my sister-in-law, Emilia, 32 female. Emilia works as a nurse at a local hospital. Now, nurses are basically unsung heroes in my opinion. Those shifts are brutal, and I have so much respect for her dedication. But there's something about Emilia I can't quite put my finger on. She always seems a bit off, like was tired and stressed to the max, which I understand given her job, but also a little guarded. Her husband Roderick, 35 male, hasn't worked in 3 years. He just sits around in the house. From what I have seen, Emilia not only brings the money, but also takes on the household duties. And she is truly blind to see just how much of a deadbeat person her husband is. It drives me absolutely nuts. Brian tries to tell me to stay out of it because it's not my business, but can you blame me for being worried? Here's the thing, Roderick always has something going on. His back hurts, his head hurts, he has some strange rash that mysteriously comes and goes. You name it, he's had it. Meanwhile, Emilia runs around picking up his slack. She works those long hospital shifts, comes home, cooks, cleans, and who knows what else. I've never even seen Roderick walk their dog. It boggles my mind. Meanwhile, Emilia runs around picking up his slack. She works those long hospital shifts, comes home, cooks, cleans, and who knows what else. I've never even seen Roderick walk their dog. It boggles my mind. Sometimes Emilia will try and vent to us about whatever new alignment Roderick has, and it's all I can do to not roll my eyes. Look, I'm not a doctor, but I'm pretty sure constantly pulling muscles from watching too much TV isn't a real diagnosis. She worries about him constantly, and it breaks my heart. Why can't she see that he's clearly taken advantage of her? I swear, the guy has got it made. I've tried to subtly bring it up to her a couple of times. You know, casually ask how her work is. Wonder aloud if Roderick would maybe want to look into a new job, since he has so much free time. But Emilia just brushes it off with a forced laugh and a comment about how that's just Roderick. It's like she's totally resigned to the fact that this is her life. And in any other case, I would have felt bad for her, but Amelia has this sense of entitlement that has always made me feel weird about her. She somehow expects everyone to wait hand and foot on her. Well, everyone but her husband. It's like she's on this constant pedestal where the world revolves entirely around her needs. Like that time we were all at Brian's parents' house for Christmas. Amelia walked in, threw her coat and bag on the floor, and immediately started complaining about how cold the house was. Brian's mom jumped up to turn up the thermostat, but Amelia wasn't satisfied. "No, not like that. It'll take forever. Can't someone grab me a blanket?" And every year, she always has problems with the gifts she gets. She's always unsatisfied. With that one time we were having a picnic in the park, Amelia showed up an hour late, then proceeded to fuss about how the spot we picked was too sunny. After we'd moved everything to a shadier area, she decided she wasn't hungry after all because she hadn't brought the right kind of snacks. Like, you have 2 legs. You could have gone to the store beforehand. The worst part is that Amelia acts like everyone else's life should revolve around hers. She'll invite herself over last minute and expect to be waited on, or change plans at the drop of a hat with no regard for anyone else's schedule. And don't even try to give her constructive criticism on anything. She'll either completely shut down or get weirdly defensive. Talk about exhausting. It's like they both feed off each other's worst qualities, and it makes them practically unbearable to be around sometimes. Brian has also helped them a lot with money over the years. I don't know the exact amount, but since we've met and what Brian has told me, the total amount has been over $10,000. And of course, no one expects that they're going to pay back anything. Amelia has also borrowed money from her parents. Like, there was that one time a couple of years ago when their car broke down. Instead of trying to figure out a cheaper fix or saving for a used car, they immediately started hinting that Brian should help them get a new one. It didn't seem to matter that Brian was saving up for a down payment on our house at the time. He ended up loaning, more like giving them, a couple of $1,000s. Then there was the time Amelia decided she needed to take this expensive online course to be a wellness coach. You know, the kind that sells weird tea blends and makes vague posts about manifesting your dream life on Instagram. She begged her parents to pay, but they said no. So of course she turned to Brian. He tried to talk her out of it, explaining it was probably a scam, but she threw a fit, and he gave in. I think she dropped the whole course after like 2 weeks. It's not even just the big stuff. It's constant little things too. Amelia always forgets her wallet when we go out to dinner. Then it's the, "Oops, guess I'll get it next time" routine, while Roderick looks innocently oblivious. Or there's the endless complaints about being so broke, followed by a new designer purse magically appearing the next week. The worst part is, there's no gratitude, ever. It's like they feel entitled to whatever they want, and Brian and the rest of us are just walking ATMs. I swear. Sometimes I think if Brian stopped shelling out money, Roderick would be forced to, well, do something with his life. It's a little harsh, I know, but their constant mooching gets under my skin. Brian has such a big heart, and sometimes I worry they're taking advantage of his kindness. But the level of entitlement they've shown in the past month is just at a whole other level. Brian and I have good jobs, so every year since we've met, we always take an annual trip abroad. The first year it was Greece, the next Bali, and this year we went to Dubai. I have always loved our annual trips. In fact, Amelia has often made passive-aggressive comments about these trips, but it hasn't stopped us. When we got back from Bali last year, Amelia tried to make us feel bad about it. Honestly, the trip was incredible. We stayed at a gorgeous beachfront resort, ate amazing food, and even did so many water resorts. I was so excited to come home and tell everyone about it. Big mistake. We had dinner at Brian's parents' house a couple of days later. We were showing pictures and sharing stories, and I could see Amelia's expression starting to sour. Before long, she chimes in with, "Must be nice to throw money around on fancy vacations when some of us have actual responsibilities." The records screech in my head. I don't even remember how I responded, but Brian's mom jumped in and tried to smooth things over. But Amelia wasn't done. She went on this whole rant about how we're selfish to spend money on ourselves when Roderick could really use a new truck for work. Work? Being? Watching TV? Honestly, I was shocked. Brian and I work hard. We pay our bills, we save, and then we splurge on this one big thing for ourselves each year. But Amelia made it sound like we were rubbing our wealth in their faces. And you guessed it, Roderick chimed in with a bunch of, "Yeah, babes," like he suddenly desperately needed a new truck, even though the one they have is perfectly fine. The whole thing left a super bad taste in my mouth. Brian told me after that I should try and understand that they're frustrated with their situation, so they lash out. And maybe he's right, but honestly, it's getting harder and harder to find excuses for their behavior. It's like they take and take and take, and expect everyone to just smile and give them more. I feel for Brian sometimes. It must be tough having them as a family. But things were so much worse after this year's trip to Dubai. The trip was amazing, but when we got back and saw our house, we were shocked. Everything was a mess. Clothes were strewn all over the bedroom floor like someone had been frantically rummaging through our closets. The dinner table was broken. One of the legs had snapped clean off. The pool was a disgusting shade of green, filled with leaves and empty beer cans floating on the surface. The TV in the living room was blasting some trashy reality show. At first, I thought we had been robbed. My heart was pounding, and I felt a surge of panic, fearing that someone might still be inside. Brian and I got out of the house immediately and called the police. Brian was shocked. We do have a security system in the house, and we didn't get any notifications. But then he checked the security cameras, and what we saw shook us to our core. It was Amelia and Roderick who had broken into our house and made a mess of that place. They were lounging on our couch, eating takeout, piles of greasy food containers scattered around. Roderick even had his dirty feet propped up on the coffee table. My blood boiled. There were empty bottles littered everywhere, and it looked like they'd raided our liquor cabinet. Amelia was even wearing one of my silk robes. At this point, the police arrived, and they asked us what had happened. I told them that we were on a trip, and my sister-in-law and her husband broke into our house. They asked us if we wanted them to check inside. I said yes, feeling a fierce determination I'd never felt before. Brian took my hand and asked me what I was doing. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "Your sister has crossed the line, and this time, she is going to pay." Honestly, I'd put up with a lot over the years. The entitled attitude, the mooching, the snide remarks. I always bit my tongue for Brian's sake, but this was a complete violation. It felt like they'd invaded not just our physical space, but our privacy and sense of security. Something in me snapped. I was tired of being the understanding sister-in-law. Amelia and Roderick needed to learn there were consequences for their actions. The police checked and there was no one inside. Then they asked us if we wanted to file a complaint. I told them yes without even a second of hesitation. Brian didn't say anything at that point, but I could tell he was shocked. The police took our statements, asked us to hand over the security tapes, and left. Both Brian and I were physically and emotionally exhausted. We just wanted to crash in our own bed, but the condition of the house wouldn't have let us. It was already past midnight by then, and we were beyond frustrated. With heavy sighs, we changed, put on some pajamas, and got to cleaning. About half an hour into cleaning, we heard a car pull up in our driveway, and guess what? Amelia and Roderick are getting out with groceries. As soon as Amelia got in, she screamed with excitement and hugged Brian, gushing, "Welcome back, brother." Then she came and hugged me and started asking us about our trip. I nearly exploded. "Are you kidding me?" I sputtered, shoving her away. "What the hell are you doing here? And what have you done to our house?" Amelia blinked at me in confusion, her perfectly manicured eyebrows raised. "I didn't know you guys would be back so early," she stammered. "I was just, getting it ready for you, planning a surprise welcome party. I was going to clean it all up and make your favorite dinner." Her blatant lie was almost laughable. The audacity of it all made my head spin. "How did you even get in?" I demanded, my voice rising. "And since when do you think it's okay to just break into our house?" Amelia flushed. "Mom gave me the key and alarm code," she mumbled. "I didn't think you'd mind." "Mind?" My jaw practically hit the floor. "Well, we do mind," I managed to say, every word dripping with anger. "And we've already filed a police report against you." Amelia's eyes widened in shock. "What are you talking about, Alice?" She turned to Brian desperately. "Brian, tell her she's being ridiculous. This is just a misunderstanding, right?" Brian looked torn. shifting his weight from foot to foot. "Well, honey, you did break into our house, used our things, and broke our table," he said quietly. "So you're going to get your own sister arrested?" Emilia shrieked, her voice cracking. "This is insane." Tears welled up in her eyes, but whether they were real or a manipulative ploy, I couldn't tell. Rage bubbled up inside me, and I let loose all the frustration I'd been holding in. "Sister or not, what you did was wrong. You violated us, our home, and you need to face the consequences. This isn't about a misunderstanding, Emilia. It's about basic respect." That's when the name calling started. Emilia spat out a string of insults, her face twisted in fury. Roderick, his usual lazy demeanor replaced with venom, joined in. He shouted obscenities and threats as they stormed out the door. They slammed the door behind them, got in the car, and drove away. The next day, we got a call from Brian's mom asking us what had happened. Apparently, Emilia and Roderick had been arrested. The police had acted quickly, and I felt a small flicker of satisfaction knowing they were facing the consequences of their actions. Brian left immediately, saying he needed to go see his parents. He didn't say a word to me, but I could read the worry in his eyes. He came back a few hours later, looking wary and strained. "Alice," he started, and the way he said my name made my stomach churn. "This is getting out of hand. Emilia and Roderick might end up looking at jail time." He paused as if waiting for my reaction. I was stunned. "And?" I asked flatly. "They deserve it, Brian. They broke into our house, trashed our belongings. I choked back a frustrated sob. Brian sighed heavily. I know, but Emilia's a mess. Apparently she wanted to play happy family for a change. See how we live a good life for some nonsense. She begged me to ask you to forgive them. Just this once." My jaw dropped. "Forgive them? Are you serious, Brian?" I sputtered, my anger surging again. "We spent hours cleaning up after them yesterday, and the house is still a mess. I don't even feel safe in our own home anymore. How can you ask me to just let this go? They violated our privacy. They came into our home behind our backs, and you want me to forget about it?" Brian's shoulders slumped in defeat. "I know it's a lot to ask, Alice, but they're family. You know how mom and dad will react. If you go through with this, there will be hell to pay in the family. Arguments, blame, everyone taking sides." He trailed off, the unspoken words hanging in the air. Now I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to see them punished, to teach them a lesson they will never forget. But another part of me aches for Brian. I know how much he loves his family, and how hard this is for him. He's stuck between a rock and a hard place, and I can see the pain in his eyes. Do I stand my ground, even if it risks causing a major rift in the family? Or do I compromise my own sense of justice to keep the peace? Do you guys have any suggestions? I feel so lost and confused. Hi everyone, thank you for your suggestions. I know you all wanted me to stand true to my grounds and go through with the case, but at the end of the day, I just couldn't. I dropped the charges, and Emilia and Roderick were let out of jail. I haven't seen them yet, and I'm dreading the inevitable confrontation, the awkwardness, the simmering resentment that's sure to follow. Why did I do it? Honestly, it came down to Brian. I hated seeing him so torn, so conflicted. He loves his sister, flaws and all, and I love him. It hurt me to see how much this was weighing on him. So, a few days ago, I told Brian that I had decided to take back the complaint, but I had a few demands. First, I wanted Emilia and Roderick to pay for the broken dinner table. They wrecked it, so they should replace it. I told him I never ever wanted them to set foot in our house again. I couldn't bear the thought of them invading our space like that ever again. And third, I wanted a formal apology in front of the whole family. Not just a mumble sorry to me, but a real acknowledgement of the wrongdoing in front of everyone. Brian looked surprised but relieved. He said he thought my demands were fair and he would talk to them. I don't know how the conversation went between him and Emilia, but somehow they agreed, and I officially withdrew the police report. They've already paid for the dinner table, which is a start I guess, but I haven't actually seen them yet. I'm not sure when that awkward reunion will happen, but I'm sure it will be full of unspoken tension and passive-aggressive comments. I'll keep you guys updated on how it all plays out, but I'm mentally preparing myself for the storm that's still brewing. Part of me wishes I'd been stronger, held my ground, and let them face the consequences. But then I remember Brian's face, the exhaustion in his eyes, and I know I made the choice I had to for us. Maybe it's not the perfect solution, but sometimes life isn't about black and white justice. It's about messy compromises and protecting the people you love, even when it feels like a part of you is being chipped away. I just hope this is all worth it in the end. Well, it's been a week since my last update, and I have a lot to catch you up on. Last Sunday was the first time I saw Amelia and Roderick after everything that happened. As you can imagine, the air practically crackled with tension when Brian and I arrived at his parents' house for dinner. When Amelia saw us, she came right up to me with that overly sweet smile plastered on her face. "Alice," she cooed, "I am so sorry for everything that happened. I know I was completely out of line, and I promise it will never ever happen again. Please accept my sincerest apology." She even threw in a dramatic little hand clasp for good measure. Honestly, I wasn't buying it for 1 second. Her apology felt more like a forced performance than actual remorse. But for Brian's sake, I took a deep breath and responded, "Amelia, I appreciate your apology. Let's just try to put this behind us, okay?" As I said the words, the taste of her betrayal felt bitter in my mouth. Roderick mumbled something vague about being sorry too. He barely looked me in the eye, shifting his weight uncomfortably. The two of them avoided each other's gaze, clearly feeling the awkwardness of the situation. I felt a surge of satisfaction. At least they knew they'd screwed up, even if their apologies felt hollow. Then, as we were sitting for dinner, we started talking about our trip, sharing stories and pictures of our amazing time in Dubai with Brian's parents. And right in the middle of it, Amelia chuckled. Yes, chuckled. Honestly, she drawled, "You two are the most selfish people I've ever seen in my life." The way she said it, it was clear she'd been waiting for a chance to throw a jab. My blood ran cold. Brian's mom shot her a warning look, but Amelia was on a roll. She launched into a full-blown rant about how her own brother had sent her to jail. The humiliation, I couldn't take it anymore. "It was me who sent you to jail," I corrected her sharply. "The only reason you're sitting here is because Brian begged me to drop the charges, and if it were up to me, you'd still be locked up, where you belong." Amelia's face contorted in rage. She sputtered out a scream of insults, the kind that makes you wince. Brian finally snapped. "Amelia, shut up. I mean it. This is my wife you're talking about. Show her some respect or there will be consequences." Amelia glared at me with pure venom in her eyes. "What else are you gonna do? This B word," she snarled, pointing a shaking finger at me, "has already ruined my reputation. What more can happen?" The room froze. Brian leapt to his feet, a furious look in his eyes. "That's it," he roared. "I can't take this anymore. I won't tolerate this disrespect towards Alice." Turning to his bewildered parents, he simply said, "We're leaving." Grabbing my hand, he stormed out, dragging me behind him. As we walked to the car, a wave of relief washed over me, mingled with a lingering anger towards Amelia. But more than anything, I was proud of Brian. It felt like a turning point. He'd finally stood up for me, for us. At that moment, it was like a breath of fresh air. A validation after everything I'd endured with his sister. After we came back home, Brian's phone rang almost immediately. It was his parents. I didn't eavesdrop, but I could catch snippets of the conversation. Brian's voice rising in frustration. When he hung up, he looked drained. "They don't get it," he said, shaking his head. "They think I should just get over it. That Amelia didn't mean it. That she was just upset about going to jail." Brian trailed off, running a hand through his hair. "But you made it clear, right?" I asked gently. "That you won't be seeing Amelia and Roderick anymore." My heart clenched with a mix of sadness for him and pride in his newfound resolve. He sighed. "Yes, I did. And it didn't go well." Mom was in tears. Dad was lecturing me about family loyalty, the works. I mean, I get it. They love Amelia, and they want everyone to get along. But there's a limit, you know. I genuinely thought Amelia felt some remorse, but her behavior tonight proved me wrong. A wave of sympathy washed over me. This wasn't easy for Brian. Cutting ties with his sister, however toxic their relationship, was a big deal. And now the pressure from his parents just made it harder. I squeezed his hand. "Are you okay?" My voice was soft, but my heart ached for him. He looked at me, and I could see the conflicting emotions roaring in his eyes. "I will be," he said with a sigh. "It just sucks. It feels like I'm losing part of my family. And I know Mom and Dad blame me, even if they won't say it outright. But you're doing the right thing," I said firmly. "You can't let them walk all over you, or me. And if they don't understand that, well, that's on them." Honestly, neither of us knows how we're going to resolve the situation. Hi everyone! Well, the gift of Amelia keeps on giving. It's been a month since my last update, and let's just say, it hasn't been smooth sailing. We haven't had any direct contact with Amelia or Roderick, thank goodness. But Brian and I have been in constant conversation with his parents. They're desperately trying to play peacemakers, fix the mess, and sweep the whole debacle onto the proverbial family rug. Apparently, Amelia has been relentlessly whining to them about how unfair we're being. Can you believe it? She's actually demanding that we give her back the money she paid for the dinner table. She claims she only paid it because she was under duress and that Brian forced her to apologize. Honestly, the sheer audacity of it makes me see red. This whole ordeal is making me seriously regret dropping those charges. A few days ago, I told Brian that I think I made a mistake. Amelia and Roderick deserve to face real consequences for their actions, not get away with a slap on the wrist and a half-hearted apology. Their entitlement and disrespect knows no bounds, and I'm starting to suspect this won't stop until they're held truly accountable. Brian tries to soothe me, saying it's not worth the family drama and that we should just try to move on and limit contact with them. And I know he's right, on some level, but part of me is just so angry. Angry that they invaded our privacy, damaged our belongings, and continued to act so shamelessly. Angry that Amelia can twist the narrative and somehow paint herself as the victim in all this. I don't know what the solution is. Do I just keep gritting my teeth and endure it for Brian's sake? Do I risk causing an even bigger rift in the family by standing my ground? Hi guys, this is going to be my last update, at least for now. Things have taken a serious turn, and I'm honestly not sure how much I'll be able to share moving forward. With Amelia and Roderick's constant harassment, we're starting to think about taking legal action. The phone calls have become relentless. Amelia's shrill voice leaving nasty voicemails, Roderick spewing threats and insults. They even started showing up at our door uninvited, pounding on the windows and shouting demands that we talk to them. It's gotten to the point where I feel uneasy and unsafe in my own home. We've documented everything, the calls, the messages, the times they've shown up at our house. Brian finally reached his breaking point. After another particularly nasty voicemail from Amelia, he called a lawyer. We had a long consultation, and to be honest, it was scary hearing how serious this could get. Restraining orders, harassment charges, words I never thought would be a part of my life. Brian's parents seem shocked that we're going this far, but I don't even care anymore. We've tried ignoring them, we've tried being civil, and nothing has worked. I know they think we're being harsh, but they don't understand. This isn't some petty family squabble. Amelia and Roderick have crossed the line, and it's time they face the legal consequences. I'm afraid I won't be able to keep you guys updated as things develop. It looks like we're heading into a legal battle, and I'm not sure what I can and can't talk about publicly, but I just wanted to thank you all for your support throughout this whole ordeal. It's been more helpful than you know to have a space to vent, to get advice, and to feel like I'm not alone in dealing with this craziness. That was a wrap up for today's story. Thank you very much for listening. Smash that like button for me and subscribe for more stories. Thanks again, and we'll be seeing you in the next one.